engineering or the developer. Public hearing, and that's when you have the opportunity to make your comments. If you intend to put your name and address on that. I'd also go ahead and say that if there's a group, if you could get one person to represent the group, would be a good thing. But we're willing to hear everybody and want to hear everybody. But that won't start until 3:30. This first part, we just go through it and ask any questions we may have of like I said, planning or engineering or anything. We can through if we have to. All right. So let's go ahead and get started.
All right, the first one is the pre-zoning 1384, 15 acres on Upper River Road, looking to be pre-zoned R4. The comments from the zoning committee on this one was considering what could be done there if the property were not annexed into the city, and based on information shared by Mr. Villarreal, including the proposed layout, landscaping, building materials, that the zoning committee was in favor of this one.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions at this point? I'm sure they don't have more information for
Lee,
us.
I've been hearing something about a Class A apartment. Do we have a definition of what that is?
Class A is all about the finishings, typically on the inside of the apartment. It usually means some kind of stone countertop product, usually stainless steel appliances, higher end finishes, hardwood or laminate type flooring. And then what that allows for is the ability to charge basically a higher price point for those apartments. But when you hear the term Class A, that's typically what it refers to, is the higher end finishes and then the higher price point.
But that's not written in here.
No, no.
Thank you.
Has Mr. Villarreal given us any indication of what the rents he expects?
In the range of $1,300 to $1,500 a month is the price point he's looking at, which lands it in that Class A category.
So Lee, it mentions here in this first part from the zoning committee about considering what could be done. So I'm assuming of course, it's out of city limits.
It's outside of the city limits. That's why this is a pre-zoning, is because it's outside of the city limits currently. So there are no zoning regulations outside of the city limits, and they are only subject to the minimal regulations that the county places on property development. Basically, as long as you can comply with whatever might be in their subdivision regulations, you can do, the county has no authority to say you can't do whatever you want on that
So
property.
it could be a trailer park or
As long as they could meet the minimum
campsite,
requirements.
developed
It
campsites
could
or
be, yes.
pig pen or something,
It could
whoever
be
knows.
whatever, yes, without those
Okay.
zoning protections.
In most any kind of business or industrial or light industrial, you know, really, I mean, I don't even know that they have any regulations against heavy industrial.
Not to my knowledge, like I said, it's all based on the subdivision regulations for the county, and mainly that concerns, you know, property lines, entrances and exits to roadways. Nothing as far as what you would consider a zoning that would say this is allowed or this is not allowed.
And we will see site, I know we got a site plan or a
They have
layout.
provided a layout as well as elevations of what the final product building outsides will look like, and they will be included in the slides that will be shown during the meeting.
Okay. Anybody else have a question? Okay.
Yep. The next item is a rezoning 1385. 18.27 acres. It's currently R6, and they are looking to go to R5 on this one, patio homes. This one came through not long ago. Believe it was a pre-zoning annexation was how that one went. They originally zoned it the entire property R6, and even went as far as platting it fully R6, but now they have come back and are asking basically leave the center R6, but the perimeter of the property go to the patio homes. They're seeing that sell well, and so they're looking to go to that product. And if this is approved, then they would have to come back and replat those areas of the subdivisions.
So they just have to replat that area, not what they're leaving.
If they're not gonna alter the center, they will be able to just, what they'll probably do is replat the entire thing, but they do have the option of the center is approved, and if it stays unchanged, the approval should continue for it.
Any questions?
All right, the next one is rezoning 1386, approximately 3.5 acres, currently B1, looking to go B2. This one was not recommended for approval by the zoning committee. This is I think everybody knows it as the Morningside area.
And just so everybody else knows, we have a petition here with several names on it and a few emails for that case as well.
We've received several comments about that one in particular, so we've printed all those there and have them available for y'all's review, both for and against.
So are those against that you have there, for?
Pretty much, that's all against. I'll let you, we'll just pass it
Well,
down.
the petition with all of those names are in support, and then so they're kind of broken apart for you.
So the petition is support for the
The
B2?
petition is support for the change.
For the change, okay.
And then all of the other printed materials are all the other comments that we received on it. And then there's also a summary as well that we can provide to kind of summarize the points.
I know this is a late date to ask this, but has anybody looked at these addresses for the petition and see where they are in relationship to the?
We didn't verify any of that or no, we just took the petition as it was delivered to us.
Okay.
And the applicant owns both centers?
Yes. And the stated purpose for the change was specifically because they would like to have a liquor store in that shopping center, and the B1 zoning does not allow that.
Well, are they proposing a liquor store on both sides of 11th?
No, not to my knowledge, but that's what the request came in as, was a rezoning for both properties.
I know the Baptist Children's Home is near there, and so how many feet away?
We don't have anything concerning that, but in the zoning, if it's specifically a church or a school, they have to be a certain distance away.
Okay, so they're past the distance from Oak Park Middle School, I think.
They should, yes, they should be.
Okay.
Or less if there's a major road in between,
Okay,
but that's the max.
okay.
And there are some accommodations in our zoning ordinance for, if it's within that buffer, if there are adequate buildings or buffered landscaping between the school or church and the business, the city council can allow accommodation for that if it's adequately screened. And they've given some of those in the past. We have several around town. They're actually considering one on this agenda for a situation over on the Beltline.
So you'll read this petition and emails?
We have a summary and that's the full breakdown of everything we got, and then I've got a summary that I have that just kind of hits all the points that were covered in all of those emails.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? All right.
All right, the next one is rezoning 1387, 1.5 acres. Currently zoned R2 and looking to go to R6. This is on Caradell Street. The Decatur florist was on that site for years, and this was recommended by the zoning committee.
I'm sure everybody's aware this is the same one that we turned down for B2 a few
Yeah.
months ago.
Yeah.
They're looking now to do townhomes on the property, which the zoning committee felt like it would actually be an improvement to some of the conditions that exist out there because this is a collector or above street. They cannot have direct access to Caradell, so all access will be through the alley in the back, which eliminates cuts to Caradell, which is a very highly trafficked roadway. So.
Will those be for rent or for sale?
To my knowledge, for sale.
Okay.
Of course, it's still single family, but new construction in the older area. All right.
All right, and the next one, rezoning 1388, is 5.22 acres, currently R3. This is looking to go to R6 townhomes. This is on Joseph Drive, and if you look at the map provided in there, it's basically the entire southern boundary of that neighborhood. Old River Manor, I believe is the name of that one. And in this one, the zoning committee was in favor of this one, but did state that they will heavily factor comments from any neighbors at the planning commission meeting, especially taking into consideration that this subdivision was just recently platted. So keep that in mind when that item comes up.
Or especially neighbors that have bought in the subdivision, right?
Just based on the merits of it, the zoning committee was in favor, but did state that any comments received from the neighbors would be factored heavily into the decision on this one.
So does that mean that they have not yet made a decision?
Well, the
committee?
zoning committee did recommend it, but like I
Okay.
said, just based on the merits of R3 to R6, they did not see, just based on the straight facts of what that were presented, they were in favor of it, but also understand that if any neighbors do show up, that needs to be factored into the decision y'all make today.
Okay.
And the reasoning for the request was when they originally started this subdivision, they were selling homes for $250,000. And that's just not possible anymore, and there's still a large market for it, and they can do that with townhomes, but they can't do it with a.
That's kind of what they found in this situation is the R3 neighborhoods, when these were platted originally, that was the price point, 200, 250, even up to 280. That was kind of the range they were, and that's what they had planned all of their, market on. And now that has, with the supply chain, material, price increases, all of that, they've seen that the prices that they're having to sell those R3s has climbed, but there's still a market for the $200,000 to $250,000 price range. And you just can't do that in the R3 envelope, but you can in the R6. So just trying to capture that, area of the market, which we do have kind of a deficit of right now. But those were what were discussed in the zoning committee on this one, and why they were ultimately in favor of it, but like I said, waiting to hear from any neighbors who might show up today.
Will that increase the quality? How many quantity?
From what's been shown, I mean, they will be high-end, nice.
In number, instead of 150 houses, maybe 200 can go in there.
Yeah, it does change how many.
It does change how many can go in. I don't have the exact number, but they're still working on platting that and figuring that out, but they're kind of waiting to do all of that engineering work until they get the answer on this, just because there's a significant expense there. And you can see this is what was provided, this rendering here is what was provided to us by the developer of the neighborhood, and he asked that we show that as part, so.
And I guess just south of there in this other subdivision, there are some R6.
There are some R6 on the southern
already
boundary of
there,
that one
so.
as well.
Yeah, but the other one is very similar with townhomes on the south side and then
Right.
R3. The difference being that these would be across the street for some R3.
Yeah.
I guess they didn't, since it was already platted, they were unable to put an alley in, and that's why they have
Right.
the front garages, which, you know, they'd have to provide at least 2 off-street parking, which they do have that here. Any other questions? Okay.
All right, the next one is certificate 3568, roughly half an acre, zoned R3. This is on Johnston Street. Looking to take one parcel, basically divide it in half into 2 parcels. The only conditions on this one were a signed owner letter and a copy of the deed.
Is there currently a house on both pieces or just one?
I believe so, yes. There are houses on both pieces, and I believe that's why they're asking for this one.
So then they probably want to sell one, is that what we think?
Potentially. The next one, certificate 3569, 4.83 acres. This one is on Old River Road. Take one parcel of 4.83 acres and divide it into 2. One of them would be 2.04 and the other 2.79 acres. The only conditions on this one, signed sealed survey with 3 state plan coordinates, and then there were 2 easements needed for existing power lines, one on the south side of the property on Walker Road, and then one only on the north side of Lot A for an existing service line.
Any questions?
All right, the next 2 kind of go together, and looking back at your previous agendas, they may look a little out of order, but we just had to do it this way because they concern the same neighborhood. So the first one is the Glenmont Acres layout plat. It's 58.3 acres, and it's just looking for, like I said, layout approval. There are no conditions to be met on this one. And so this would be the full layout of the entire 58 acres. And then the next item is the preliminary plat for only phase 1 of the Glenmont Acres subdivision. On that one, the conditions are add street names to the plat, signed sealed construction drawings approved by DU and engineering, a handicapped ramp detail is needed, and then per engineering approval and per DU approval on these. And so that's the reason for it looking a little out of order for what you might be used to seeing, is because we need the layout plat. If it gets approval, it has to be approved before the preliminary can be. So we just had to order it that way. Slightly different than what you're used to seeing.
Any questions or comments? Okay.
All right, right, the next item is vacation 540. It's 0.15 acres. This is a portion of Cherry Street that a property owner is looking to vacate just on the north side of Bank Street. On this one, conditions placed were signed vacation package. DU will need to retain an easement for utilities, and the width of that will need to be determined per field work. There's a sewer line that runs down roughly the center line of that roadway, and it's too deep to be relocated, so it has to remain. That's why that easement will need to be retained. There will need to be some allowance for turnarounds on the other side, and if approved, additional right-of-way may be required for that turnaround. Basically, a cul-de-sac or some form of T-shaped, what we call a hammerhead turnaround, large enough for if a emergency vehicle had to get in, they'd be able to three-point turn and get out, basically. And some points of information on this one, other than the normal one of the relocation of utilities. The recording of the vacation will be held until a plat is submitted that dedicates that right-of-way for the turnaround. And then construction of the turnaround will be a condition of any site plan approval for any development on the property.
Okay, so we're not actually vacating as far back as what the drawing shows.
Potentially not. The vacation itself may be pulled back in a little bit to allow retaining of right-of-way on the north end of it for that cul-de-sac. And the developer did also provide us kind of a conceptual layout of what they're looking to do there. Basically, apartment complex.
So my understanding, there's gonna have to be some other property purchased and then the plat, so,
Yes, they currently own both of the properties on the, it's kind of weird saying north and south because they're kind of at an angle, but for lack of a better, on the north side of Cherry Street, those properties the developer already owns. On the south side of Cherry Street, they own a few of the properties on the far southern corner of that lot, of that block, and then they have options to buy on the other properties, everything except for the funeral home that's on that corner.
okay, so we wouldn't dedicate it, if it passes the council, they wouldn't dedicate it until they came back with a plat consolidating.
We won't, yes, we won't record the vacation until we actually have a plat that cleans up all of the properties, consolidates the properties, and dedicates that right-of-way for the turnaround.
Okay. Is there any way that we can put some kind of time limit on this so we don't vacate a public street for 2 years and nothing happens?
That, Herman, are you aware if we can make that concession in here?
You can put a time frame on it, sure can.
So plat would need to be submitted within a certain time frame, or the approval would be rescinded.
Well, does the plat really get us that? Because they could plat it and still sit for a long time.
I believe the thinking on that was, so as long as it's platted and that right-of-way gets dedicated to the city, it's there, and the city will be able to make sure that even if it is vacated, that cul-de-sac still exists down there.
Okay, well, what I'm more getting to is that the Cherry Street stays open as a street until they actually start to build something.
If vacated, then it would not, the city would not be in control of that right-of-way anymore, so that is the risk that would be run here, yes.
I just sort of thinking, can we vacate it? We give the developer, yes, it's vacated, but we don't actually vacate it as a public street until they're brought in a site plan. So that they know they've got it to do their site plan. but we don't vacate it if it takes them, a long time. We don't have a closed street for no reason.
If you would like that to be the condition that is added,
Well, that's my concern, is closing the street very early.
Let me make sure I understand, what you're asking is, we go ahead and vacate it, but they haven't started their project, and they delayed it. Well, the answer is, we don't record the vacation until they start their project.
And that's what I'm asking. Can we say, okay, can we pass this to the council, and the council say, okay, we will vacate it at the time you submit a site plan?
Right, but we will not record it, the vacation, until they submit.
See, right on here we have plat, but I'm talking site plan. So site plan comes with construction generally. Generally, somebody's not gonna do a site plan until they're ready to build. Where they may do a plat, they buy the property, consolidate it, and wait for a while. So what I'm asking is, can that condition be put on it, that we wouldn't actually vacate the property and record it until they gave a site plan for development?
That could be a condition if y'all wish to do that, yes.
That makes
So in
sense?
that scenario, Kent, what happens if they start, let's do a site plan and maybe initial beginnings, economy fall apart, they abandon the project?
That's always a risk.
So could we tie something to it that says, okay, when you receive a CO for whatever you're gonna build, or?
Well, the CO would be the last thing, that would be after.
That's correct. You know it's gonna be
construction
built.
fully done.
No, the CO's after it's all built.
That's right.
That's where, or maybe you could go to permit issue. I mean, that's when it truly starts, is when they buy that permit. But, realistically, most people are not gonna pay for the engineering on a site plan until they're ready to start. But you're right, I mean, that could happen with anything we vacate, that then they don't do
Yeah.
it.
We've had a lot of lots sitting in Decatur that have been undeveloped for several years because of economy and just various things.
So you're saying you would vacate it with a time frame that we would take it back if it's not completed?
I guess that's a possibility, right, Herman? I wasn't really trying to put so much a time limit on when they had to build it by, but just not vacate it until they were ready to build, is what I'm trying to do. Or is what I'm suggesting.
Or like Gary said, after it's built as well.
Well, it could be after, because,
They gotta build on it.
they gotta build on it, and there's some work they gotta do.
Can't do it if it's not vacated.
From what I understand, they don't intend to build a building over it, because it's still gonna be an easement, but it would probably be the parking lot or the drive into the complex.
That's the proposal, is this
Yeah.
would be their drive into, and then there would be parking lots on both sides.
What I'm trying to accomplish is that we don't close the city street until they're ready, till they need it. Not necessarily put them under a time limit, but we're not gonna close the street until you do, whether that's 6 months or 4 years.
That's right.
Is that something we can do, Herman?
Yes, but I guess y'all need to decide what you want to see triggered recording of the vacation. What event do you wish to see?
Well, I'm proposing that it's a site plan. Now, that doesn't solve the problem if it goes bad. I don't know what we can do for that unless we put a condition, if they don't build in so many years, it comes back to us.
Why
But
can't we?
if they go in and tear the street up, I don't know if we want it back, do we?
If you wanted to do permit issuance,
That's right, so when they.
because that's the step, they have pulled the permits, site plan has been approved. Those permits can't be pulled until after the site plan's been approved.
I don't have a problem with that.
So the condition y'all will be looking to recommend a condition that vacation would not be recorded until after permits have been issued for the project.
Yep.
And then, Herman, would that then have to be written into the council resolution as well? So we wouldn't
I
even,
wouldn't put that, I wouldn't necessarily put that in vacation.
so we wouldn't
I
even,
would put that as part of the minutes.
so what we would do in this,
For y'all not to record it until
okay.
whatever event they decide.
So it could go, would we even submit it to the council for their approval until the permits are requested?
No, I don't, see, they need some assurance.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead and go through the planning commission and the city council process, but then hold the recording
Put in the council minutes that it will not be recorded until.
until,
Planning commission needs to tell us
okay,
when the event triggers that.
okay,
And of course, when they present today, we'll find out if they're okay with that.
yes.
But that's an option that we can place with this. Okay.
So we ended on when building permits are issued?
Yes.
I think that's where we are now.
Yeah.
Depending on what the developer, you know, I think we, you know, when we vote then, we'll decide. Okay?
All right, and the last two items are bond reviews. The first one is Old River Manor Phase One. We do have verification from DU, Joe Wheeler, and engineering that everything is complete on this one except for the final wearing surface of the roads. So they are looking for a bond reduction in this amount. And the total on that is just north of $43,000 is what the new bond will be for this.
So that will be the total of the bond that we hold,
Yes,
43,000.
yes. We will allow them to, once they get us the new bond, we will give them the old bond back, and we will just then be holding the bond amount for $43,000.
Okay, and that's the amount that
And it
engineering
was-
says is plenty to.
Yes,
Okay.
they provided an estimate, and the estimate was approved by engineering. And I believe it was just north of 43,000, like 40.
43,200.
There you go.
Everybody understand that or request?
The original
I
bond.
believe the original bond was 308,000, but I can verify that for you.
That is correct.
So all the base road, curbs and gutter and all that's in this?
Everything
that
is
last
in
surface.
except for just that final wearing surface, and they just got caught by the cold weather, so, as soon as the weather warms up a little bit, they get enough days and can get a contractor out. That's kind of the problem right now, is contractors are all backed up with all the issues going on right now, so that's why the ask has come to just reduce it.
Okay.
Did you say we do have confirmation 43 is enough?
Yes. All right, and then the last one is Manor Park Phase Two. And on this one, we're looking for full release of the bond on this one. And we do have verification on this one from DU, Joe Wheeler, and engineering. All utilities and all public improvements have been completed.
Any questions? Any questions back on any of the previous cases? Just anything anybody needs to ask?
That need to be
Okay,
taken out.
we'll get started again. Yeah.
Yeah.
3:30. Remind everybody, if you want to speak, please place for the regular scheduled February 2022 Planning Commission. I would like to call us to order. Please call the roll.
Lawrence.
Here.
Gordon.
Here.
Tate. Here. Pepper. Wynn.
Here.
Temple.
Here.
Burris.
Here.
Culpepper.
Here.
Hyde.
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum. Do I have are there any corrections or additions to the minutes from the January 2022 commission meeting? Not, do I have a motion and a second to accept those minutes as presented?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Borden, second by Mr. Temple. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. Okay, I'd like to take a moment to introduce the Planning Commission members and give a brief description of what we do and how this meeting is conducted. The commission has 9 members. 8 of us are volunteers appointed by the mayor for a 6-year term. We also have 1 member from the city council. My name is Kent Lawrence. Our vice chair is Gary Borden. Our secretary is Dan Culpepper. Other members are Francis Tate, Myrna Burrows, Joseph Wynn, Eddie Pike, Forrest Temple, and the council member is Hunter Pepper, who is not with us today. Members of the public seeking to get an item considered by the Planning Commission must send an application to the Planning Department not less than 21 days prior to this meeting. Unless otherwise specified, all applications for development approvals are the result of submittals by a private citizen seeking some change to their own property. In making our decisions, a primary tool used by the Planning Commission is the One Decatur Comprehensive Plan. This is a general community plan for the city of Decatur and was adopted through a public process to formalize a vision for the future of the community that represents the interest and will of Decatur residents. In many of these cases, the Planning Commission does not have the final say. Zoning, annexations, vacations, sidewalk cafe license, and resolutions all require additional approval from the city council before they become official. In these cases, the Planning Commission is to advise the city council. The first part of today's meeting is a public hearing. Each item will be read separately and voted on after comments and discussion. If you wish to comment on an item, we ask that you come forward to the microphone right up here, state your name and address, and then make your comments. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, and please don't repeat something that's already been said. We want everybody to get your opinion out, but let's don't have a lot of repeating. And if you have a group and can send the spokesman for the group, that would be great too. We will be enforcing the 3 minutes, so just keep that in mind. Today's public hearing will have these type requests. Pre-zoning. Section 11-52-85 of the state code makes provisions for municipalities to apply a zoning district to property contiguous to the city limits with an agreement that that property will be annexed within 6 months of the pre-zoning being completed. This also moves to the council. Rezoning. This is the changing the current zoning of a property to a different zoning. The commission will vote to recommend or not recommend this zoning change to the city council. And in pre-zoning and rezoning, if an applicant wishes to go to the city council without the recommendation from the planning commission, they can do that, but they should notify the planning department via email or in writing by tomorrow afternoon. Then we also have a preliminary plat. This is the second step of a subdivision process and will have construction plans included for the planning department to see. Okay, if you would please read the first case.
The first case is pre-zoning 1384-22. It is 14.57 acres. Current zoning is none. The applicant is Villarreal Properties LLC. The location is approximately 2900 Upper River Road. The request, pre-zone 14.57 acres to R4. The new zone is R4 multifamily residential. Proposed land use is multifamily residential. The One Decatur future land use is mixed neighborhood. The One Decatur street typology, Upper River Road, is a minor arterial. The comments from the zoning committee, considering what could be done there if the property were not annexed into the city, and based on the information shared by Mr. Villarreal, including the proposed layout, landscaping, and building materials, the zoning committee was in favor of this request. There are no conditions to be met, and a point of information, any relocation of utilities will be at the owner's expense.
Okay, is there anyone from the community that would wish to speak to this request?
If you don't mind. Mr.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
If you don't
I'm
mind,
sorry.
I'll
Back up and let,
We prepared a couple of materials that might help answer some questions up front, and anything not addressed in this will allow, it might help in some of the conversation that can be had. Jimmy, if you would. So there's the property that's being requested, roughly 14.5 acres. The zoning around it, you have the single-family residential and the commercial to the south, the Publix shopping center, I'm sure you're all aware of out there. And Jimmy, the next. So the demand for apartments is increasing every day. The younger, what we're seeing in that market is that the younger generation, they are more likely than not looking to rent rather than own these days. That's, market research is showing that. Right now, we're seeing a lot of people move into this area for new jobs, and we do not really have enough housing stock. Particularly, we do not have very much rental options in this city. They're looking for high quality, specifically new and up-to-date apartments, which we don't have enough of in this city. And that's what we're seeing out of all the market trends right now. Jimmy, if you would. The regional trends on this is, while we have not been adding any new apartments in our city, other cities around us have. The City of Huntsville, at their last Planning Commission meeting, released their report from their building department for the 2021 calendar year. They permitted 6,345 total housing units, which was a 62.8% increase from 2020. What they saw that was interesting this year was their single-family units decreased. They only permitted 1,379. That's a 14.6% decrease from 2020. What they saw was multifamily, they permitted nearly 5,000 multifamily units, a 129% increase from the year before. Demand in this segment of real estate is skyrocketing in this area. The closest nearby example that we have is Limestone Creek. This is roughly 1.3 miles east of our city limits on Interstate 565. This is at the Mooresville exit. They are pulling in rents right now of just shy of $2,000 for their smaller units to over $1,500 a month for their largest units. A housing market report that was done in 2007 stated that of the residents of that complex, 30 to 40% were coming in from outside of the area. The specifics on this project, what the developer has told us that he intends to build is high quality apartments, and his price point is going to be in the neighborhood of $1,400 a month for each one of these units. If this pre-zoning and then the subsequent annexation is approved, the next step that will come would be site plan approval. And at the site plan approval is where the full construction drawings would come, and where all of those details would be submitted. Right now, the question before you is just the pre-zoning, which is, can he get the zoning he needs to do his project? The developer has agreed to provide adequate landscaping and to provide a buffer between his property and his neighboring properties. And those details will come at the site plan stage. This is the layout he is proposing. Upper River Road will be on your left of the screen. And you can see through discussions with the planning staff, the proposed layout that was settled on was ringing the outside with the buildings. And what that accomplishes is it leaves all of your parking and drive aisles as well as all your lighting on the interior of the property so as not to bleed over into the neighboring properties. And with that R4 zoning comes a 30-foot setback. And so he will be required to stay off of the property lines by 30 foot, which allows for the buffering to be installed there. Give me the next one. So these are the renderings that the applicant has provided for what he is intending to do. You can see they are limited by zoning to 2 stories tall, and they will be a masonry product on the bottom with siding on the upper floor. A couple other examples here of what he has provided as proposed renderings. So what always comes up in this is traffic increase. And on Upper River Road, that road is classified as a minor arterial, which means that it was designed to handle a capacity of 17,800 vehicle trips a day. The most current traffic count for that segment of roadway, which was captured in 2020, was 4,088 trips per day. So what we did was we ran calculations on what this proposed development, as well as the 2 developments on Old River Road, once fully completed, what traffic could we expect? And there we saw an increase of 2,756 trips being added to the roadway. With all of that put together, the capacity being 17,800 trips, your capacity on that roadway would stand at roughly 38% of design capacity once all of these developments are completed, which does not rise to the level of needing attention or being a traffic concern when you're looking at the traffic patterns in the area.
Is that considered full occupancy at all the new developments?
That is full occupancy at all the new developments that have happened, if you include this one plus the 2 subdivisions going in on Old River Road.
Have we looked at AM or PM peaks?
You don't really plan for AM or PM peaks when you're looking at design capacity or looking to widen or anything like that. It's a bad metric to go by. It's better to balance that traffic load out to the daily count, which is why we always rely on those dailies more than the AM or PM peak. And so then the question comes up, what happens if this application is denied? The main point that we always like to emphasize is this property is not inside the city limits of Decatur. And as such, there are no zoning restrictions on that property whatsoever. So as long as the property owner can meet the minimal requirements that the county places as far as their subdivision regulations, the county has no authority to tell them they cannot do what they want on their property. annexing in and giving them the zoning is what the city always looks for, to be able to provide those protections that that property does not currently have. Are there any questions that the commission would like to address to me before we go into the public comment?
Do you want to talk about the plans the city has for the intersection
Yes, that's another good thing to mention here is, so the city is currently in the process. We have preliminary layout design of a upgrade to the Upper River Road and 67 intersection. We're working on getting full engineered designs for those. Basically what they're looking for is to tee that intersection in, realign it to where it comes in at that oblique angle now, and everyone knows it's a traffic hazard. They're going to look to realign that and to a more traditional T and signalize that intersection to improve the safety there. And then we also have another preliminary design for the Old River Road, Upper River Road, Indian Hills Road intersection there. And once the Upper River Road 67 intersection can be addressed, that will be the next one that the council looks at. But the council has indicated that they are going to do the Upper River Road intersection as soon as we have those engineered drawings in hand.
Is there a proposed timeline?
Not yet. We're still waiting on the drawings on the engineered drawings to come back, and then once that's done, it can be sent out to bid, and then it's selecting a contractor and getting into their schedule.
There's some seats up here if anybody wants to come forward.
Are there any other questions?
Any other questions for Lee?
I have a question. So the fact that it's in the county and the developer could do what he wanted, they could still build this without it being rezoned. They just wouldn't be able to.
They wouldn't be able to hook onto
Connect to
the
the
sewer,
sewer
so
system.
what they would have to do is probably eliminate a couple of buildings and put in an engineered septic system.
Any other questions? Okay, then I'll open it up to the public. Who wants to go first? And I remind you to state your name and address, and like I said, you got 3 minutes, and you're addressing the commission.
Hello, my name's Randy Hill. I live at 2804 Hunterwood Drive, Decatur, Alabama. My wife and I have lived in Hickory Hills subdivision for about the past 10 years. We chose Hickory Hills as our forever home because it was a quiet, sleepy neighborhood with great neighbors. I've been told by several of our neighbors that have lived there for more than 50 years that the city has been promising public sewer systems for that area for years, and we still have nothing. The new subdivisions have come in and been able to tap into it. We really don't understand, why it is that we're not offered the same opportunity. Our home is located on Hunterwood Drive, which backs up to a beautiful 10 acres owned by Mary and Wayne Higdon from Hartsville, Alabama. They've been wonderful and generous neighbors for years. They've afforded us the opportunity to use a large garden spot back there, and we really love our home and area. It butts up against, or Miss Higdon's property butts up against to Mr. Villarreal's property. As it stands now, when it rains, especially since they've added the 2 subdivision properties out there, the water was standing on it at some before, but now it's gotten a lot worse. I've got pictures of it where it's just like almost a lake when there's a heavy rain. My understanding is that Mr. Villarreal is supposed to bring in a bunch of dirt to build up that end of the property, which to me looks like it's going to force more water over onto Miss Higdon's property, making my backyard a big gigantic We've often seen in the past with other municipalities such as Madison, when progress starts outpacing your resources, those type of things happen. And I kind of feel like that's where we're headed here. With the addition of those two new subdivisions already, I don't know that proper plans have been put into place to handle that water and where it's supposed to go. Those are just kind of some of the answers. He mentioned the fact that the traffic studies that he did, when were those done?
2020.
2020, okay. All right, well, it certainly appears to us that live out there with the other additions of the neighborhoods now next to the school and these two new subdivisions, that the property or the traffic has increased tremendously. And that blinking light there is an area of tremendous concern. When my kids leave my house and they punch into their GPS that they want to go home back to Birmingham or Huntsville, it directs them out to that way. And then they
Wrap up, sir, your time.
Exactly, they have to take a left-hand turn. I saw a lady just the other day that had 4 kids in the car, and she was up there with her blinker on, trying to get out into traffic. It's really concerning.
Okay. And as Mr. Terry stated earlier, and I'm gonna have to cut you off because your time is up.
All right.
As far as that, this came up with the original subdivision out there. So the city is working to correct that problem at 67, and that's what he was explaining, that we're trying to get designed to relieve that, make it a T, make it much safer.
I understand that, and I really appreciate it, but I think we were told that the last meeting we had about the subdivision out there, if we could get more of a date, I understand that.
Well, all I can tell you is that it is progressing. When we started with the first subdivision, we were starting the study at that time. So that study's been done, everything is moving forward. We really can't give a date at this time, but I will tell you it's moving forward. Mr. Terry, you have something you want to add?
Yes, if you wanted me to speak to that. So a study was just concluded. It was a joint study that was run by our Metropolitan Planning Organization and paid for jointly by the City of Decatur, the City of Priceville, and Morgan County, all contributing to paying for that study. It looked at 14 different intersections, starting at Upper River Road and 67, and includes intersections on Upper River Road and 67 all the way down to Bethel Road. So every intersection in the area, including the interstate interchange. And what that engineering study came back with, it identified problems at each one of those locations and gave proposed designs. So that study has concluded, and that's what we are working off of as a city, as City of Decatur, Priceville, and Morgan County, working through, and as funding becomes available, addressing all of those intersections out there. But as far as a timeline, that's all based on funding and contractor availability.
Okay. And I will tell everyone that I'm sure you can ask any councilman, and they've heard from me about these intersections out there, that is something that has to be on the city's plan. So they're very aware of that and working to resolve that. I do want to take a minute and explain sewer. And it may not have been this years ago, but in the last several years, the way sewers are put in, and like with the Morris development, we run the sewer to the development. The developer actually puts it in at every lot. And then it is part of the cost of that lot. As far as the city running sewer to each individual lot, that doesn't happen. We run it where it's available so that development can hook onto the sewer. So running it up your street, that if you don't have sewer, see, that would have been done. Now the way it's done, when they build that development, the developer puts that sewer in the inner streets. We just bring it to it. So we do have a lot of places that do not have sewer to their each individual house, but there are more of them that there is sewer access if you all, came together to pay for that. And I know people don't like to hear that, but that's how it actually works. Who would like to go next?
name's Steve Abbott, 2823 Hunterwood Drive, house I have. Y'all already addressed a lot of safety issues, so I won't delay there. I did speak to Michael Marquise in planning the other day, and he was real nice, so I really want to commend him. He was thorough in explaining what this is about. The questions, I guess, that came up from my discussion were obviously, one thing is the size of the development as far as number of parking places. I had a map that showed, one of the neighbors gave me, it had 445 parking places. That's plus or minus how many. The other thing I thought of is that I was asking about the ingress and egress. Of course, the safety issues already addressed, but one thing is it's still got one way in and one way out. So we have that much development in there and that much build out. That is a safety issue coming out on Upper River Road. The other thing is that it appears this whole development interior is private. So no public road will be in there. And so that means, based on my experience with public services, the whole process is you won't have a cart system there. You'll have to go to some commercial hauler to come in there, either dumpster service or underground services, stationary compactors or whatever. So that's going to be increased tandem axle type trucks going there from private haulers. I've seen this done back door where a developer comes in and comes into the county and does the same thing you talk about now with the county, and then in an effort to get the sewer, then they'll annex into the city after this is already built. That's happened in the Hampton Cove area, that's happened all over Huntsville, Madison County. The example you showed on that town, those apartments in Limestone, my knowledge of that apartment complex, it was built out before the interstate, well, before any kind of development was around. There was no houses, no residential, anything. So that was the whole, and then their services, they have garage apartments detached at the back of these units. All the parking on this unit is on the street side. Okay, so I don't know how you got parking on both the interior and the exterior butting into each other, and if it's a standard parking lot, 18.5, 19 feet, that's 38 feet. So if the road's 58 feet or 50 feet, just roadway, you're gonna have a hard time making a two-way lane in there. It was a little bit deceptive in how this is presented as 26 building units. It looks like from the picture, each unit has 4 apartment complexes. 4, 3, that's the only way you can get that 445 households. The compatibility issue, I don't know, the people that are building, they've got a big investment on Old River Road, and I certainly feel for the people that back up to this, because you only got 30 feet back up. So when I see apartments, I consider it transient. I understand people moving in, moving out, but you don't have apartment dwellers that are signing 20 and 30-year leases. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. While she's coming up, I want to bring up, the drainage came up earlier. This is just pre-zoning. Before an apartment complex can be built, we have what is called site plan review. And that's where engineering goes over all these things. They make sure that there's adequate drainage. They're not allowed to drain water onto somebody else's property. So those kind of things are taken care of in that process. Same thing with parking. We have requirements of how many parking stalls per apartment you have to have, which is 2. But those things are addressed at a different time. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm just gonna read what I wrote.
Okay, first if you'd state your name and address.
I'm hearing impaired, so hold on.
Okay, yes, that'd be great.
Yes. My name is Jane Whitaker. I live at 3002 Joseph Drive. This is going in right in front of me. I recently closed on this house 32 days ago. So you can imagine my displeasure in finding out just 1 week later after closing that the community that I was sales pitched to was going to drastically change and devalue my home 32 days ago. I'm 66, I live alone, and I'm hearing impaired. I came here 1 year ago this month from Connecticut to secure a retirement home. I knew for my sense of security and well-being, I could not live where there was a lot of people or houses near me, as I can't hear what's going on around me. This was a main factor in settling on this community. I was never informed before closing that townhouses, apartments with multiple people were going to be directly across the street from me. I find this clearly deceitful on the builder's part in not disclosing that to me. We all know we are in a seller's market, right? It's my understanding the reason for changing the aesthetics of a whole community less than 1 year after starting this build is because the houses aren't selling at this price point. We all know we are in a seller's market right now. If you drive through the community just in front of this one, you will see sold signs on every house with the same price point, if not higher. I would like at this time to bring to your attention an HOA clause in their contract I just signed. I realize you have nothing to do with HOAs, but please bear with me. This contract says, land use. None of said lots may be improved, used, or occupied other than private single-family residential purposes. No structure shall be erected on lots other than a single-family dwelling with external design and location in relation to surrounding structures, and must show kind and shape to be in harmony with relation to surrounding structures. Townhouses are not in harmony to the external design in relation to its surrounding structures on Joseph Drive and Lisa Lane. Therefore, I ask that you deny this zoning change based on all the points I brought to your attention. My solution is to leave Joseph Drive and Lisa Lane Phase 1 as intended, seeing that's what I bought into, and put townhouses in back where no one has secured a home yet. I think this will also hold the builder and the sales rep accountable for what we were told I was moving into.
Okay, it's obvious that she's speaking to case 13-8822, which is not the one we're addressing right now, but we all heard what she had to say for that one when it comes up later.
Okay.
Which is fine that she has spoke for it.
Okay.
That's just not the one we're voting on.
We're not voting on that one today, but they paid attention to exactly what you said.
Today, yeah.
Yeah, we
we'll
vote
on
on
it
it.
It'll
It'll be
be
later
later,
in this
not
meeting.
later.
It's just not the one we're doing right now. So everybody understood which one she was speaking to, right? Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm Jack Fight, 2312 Horse Tree Place, Southeast. Appreciate you letting me come and say a few words on behalf of this development that Mr. Villarreal is planning. And I fully understand, Mr. Hill and a lot of others, your hesitancy and your concern. And I think, you know, it's just it's just so refreshing, one, that we come together as a community and discuss these things, and that we're having these discussions. You know, finally, Decatur is having interest, and we see progressive things going on in our community. And for many of us, it's a prayer answered, and I understand when it's in your back door, it may not be. And so I fully respect your opinions as homeowners, and I know Mr. Villarreal does as well. I'm chairman of the Chamber Residential Task Force Committee, and we started several years ago, and using our One Decatur study that was prepared and vetted throughout the community years ago, looked at it and trying to figure out how this community can move forward in step with some of the other communities in our area. The Limestone County and Madison County and just booming, and Decatur has been really stagnant for 30 years. And so we knew one of the key components is not only good single family homes, but the biggest hindrance to young people moving to our area was quality multifamily housing. And so we have hosted many
out-of-town developers, and they're very interested now in Decatur as like a third-tier market, Huntsville being a second tier, and these big deals are very hard for them to come about, and so they're looking at our markets now. And what they want to see is local developers putting skin in the game because of banking and different things of how the developer has to justify rents and how they're going to pay back their loans. And so in Decatur, we have a real void of that, of quality housing. I'm so glad that Andy Villarreal stepped up and wants to plan a quality, high-end multifamily development in Decatur. As previously said, the property could stay in the county, he could build whatever he wanted to, pretty much there. So appreciate him wanting to come into the city and to provide high-end option. Our company alone this year has had 4 new people that really would have wanted to live in Decatur. One of them had a school teacher wife, and I'm not going to get into names, but there were no options. And so it's very real. And there's a lot of good paying jobs that people want to come in and get into the rental market. And so once they're here, the averages are way much higher that they're going to stay and put in roots in our community. And that's what we need. That's what we need for our quality of life. That's what we need for our community, to have options. And we want our children.
I had to cut you off.
Okay, I'm sorry. But I appreciate it. I did reach out to Mr. Villarreal, and he gave me the assurance, and he's displayed that in other ventures that he's done in this community, and I have full faith that he's going to come forward and build a quality product. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cheyenne Sanchez. I live at 445 Sherman Street Southeast in the Historic District. I figured now is a good time for me to speak because I'm going to represent young professionals in Decatur and the surrounding areas and how much we desperately need this project. A year ago I bought in Decatur, thankfully, because I found a house that was just perfect for me. But before then I was searching for somewhere to live. You know, I'm from this area, I grew up in this area, and I lived away for 5 years. I moved back home to be with family because that's what this community is really all about, is rich tradition, family. We want our kids to come back. We want our grandkids to come back. That's how you create a successful community. The issue is there's nowhere for us to live. My niece is looking right now for an apartment complex, and there's nowhere safe for her to live as a young single woman. There's honestly nowhere right now that I could live if I didn't buy a home. We have an engineer who lives in Huntsville right now, and she comes to some of our young professionals events. She just got a job here in Decatur, and she's having to live in Huntsville and Madison because there's no opportunity for her to rent here, and she doesn't really have the opportunity to buy right now. The biggest thing is we want to keep our money here. We want to keep our people here. If people are going to Madison, if they're going to Huntsville, then they're eating in Madison and Huntsville. They're shopping in Madison and Huntsville. They're participating in entertainment in Madison and Huntsville. So I just think it's really crucial for us to have somewhere for these people to live and thrive and grow and put money back into this community. So let's keep young people here and bring them back.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Dag Rode Jr. Actually a lawyer from Huntsville. Heard some kind things about Huntsville today. I represent Greg Blythe and his wife Lyle. Don't represent anybody else yet in the community relative to this matter, but that may be changing. I recognize I'm an outsider, relatively speaking. I'm from Huntsville, but our firm does have a Decatur office. Larry Weaver and Drew Dill also work in that office. I was recently retained to get involved in this matter, and my position on this is it seems that there's agreement that there needs to be more housing in Decatur, and I don't think anyone would be adamantly opposed to that. The question to me is, why rush it? There was discussion, I believe, from the commission earlier about how, a lot of the issues with drainage, surface water runoff, flooding, these sorts of things could all be addressed later, in connection with a site plan review. And that may be true, that there may be another bite at the apple for concerned, landowners, citizens, to try to oppose something that they believe is not in their interest, and then it's not in the true best interest of Decatur or their neighborhoods. But I would say, why hurry and approve something on pre-zoning when there's a clear and vocal constituency of concerned people who show up and say, hey, we've got issues. There's a downside to these developments. And I will say, as a proud Huntsvillian, we're thriving. We've got a lot of people moving to Huntsville. We've got a lot of great restaurants, and it's great. But people who want that move there, and people who might like Decatur the way it is, might have moved to Decatur over the last 30 years. So this rush to fundamentally change the character of a community without taking the temperature of the actual people for whom this is home is a mistake. And words like progress and forward, which is the rhetoric that's always used for this, presupposes that everyone agrees about which way's forward. And I think that there should be a robust debate about that. A couple other points and then I'll sit down. We got proximity to a wildlife refuge. Serious flooding issues. And this community already is low-lying and there's issues with flooding, and the city doesn't have unlimited resources, doesn't have unlimited budget. And so I think that this project and others like it put the community on the horns of a dilemma. On the one hand, either the city is willing to invest massive resources in order to address the flooding and the drainage and the other issues involving traffic in a way that doesn't hurt the surrounding owners, but then it's essentially a subsidy to this developer. Or else, the problems will not get solved, and it's going to be harmful to the adjoining landowners. So I would just ask that, the commission and everybody else simply take their time, study this from an engineering standpoint, get the Army Corps of Engineers involved. If it may be that these drainage ditches and channels represent tributaries, and so I don't know the answers to these things, and I'm not saying that there's no way this thing could be lawfully built in a way that furthered everybody's best interest, but I would just ask that the commission slow down and not rush something through. Thank you.
Hi, my name is John Joseph. I live at 2305 Fleetwood Drive here in Decatur, born and raised here, and glad our family's here today. This is really tough because there are two sets of legitimate competing concerns. Many of the people whose homes would be affected by this development I call friends, and their concerns are legitimate. I don't think they should be dismissed. I don't think they should be brushed aside. I don't think they should be rushed through. I think every concern we've heard is one that we would all have about our own homes if we're being honest about it. They're valid concerns. The issue I see from a community standpoint is that we don't have the option of growing or staying the same. That's not an option for communities. That's not how cities work. We will either grow and we will have the revenue to meet basic city needs and upgrade and expand our city, or we will not grow, we will run out of that revenue and we will hollow out, which we've seen happen to cities all over the country. Cities all around us are upgrading. Priceville is an option, Hartsville is an option for people to move to, Madison, Huntsville, many other options exist now. Other cities are not standing still. The people we can attract here are key to growing. They bring skills which help us keep good jobs here, help us attract good jobs. We don't have a redstone arsenal, which is going to be there regardless. We have a private sector-based economy. We've got to have the workforce to support those jobs. They bring income to support our small businesses all over the city. They bring revenue to prevent all of our taxes from going up. And we need these higher-end apartments. So it's hard to sit here and hear people I know express concerns that I think are legitimate concerns. But in the interest of the city and where we stand today, I hope you'll approve this project. And that if it is approved, though, that every consideration be given to the concerns that have been expressed by the homeowners. So, thank you.
I'm Jamie Reeves. I live at 2503 Lakeview Drive in Decatur, Alabama. I am the owner of Merit House Realty here in town. I also sit with Jack on the residential task team, and I'm also the chair for development for the Decatur Chamber of Commerce. As I've sat and I've listened to everyone say exactly how they feel for these developments, I just want to throw some numbers out there for the needs that we have. Our first-time home buyers are losing out on pretty much every home that's coming into our area because their price range is no longer that of a first-time home buyer and the price range of what these apartments are going to be. $1,200 a month for a home payment is no more because that median price range now, which is great for our city, is in the mid-200s. And if you're a school teacher or you have a daughter or a son who is a school teacher, they no longer qualify on their income to move into our city as a first-time home buyer. Therefore, the need for some upscale apartments for that income level is very much needed for our area. I know a couple of people mentioned that apartments mean transient. They do. They absolutely do. Most people don't live in an apartment for the rest of their lives, but when they come to our city, they'll stay here for the rest of their lives when they see how good it is in Decatur. And that's exciting for us. Just like several other people said, we want to get them here to show them how good Decatur is and what we have to offer. And right now we're losing them to the surrounding areas just because the rental need is so great and we don't have that available to them, especially in a rental situation where there's no grass to mow, there's no upkeep to take care of, because even if you rent from a private owner, you're responsible for the most part for your yard, for your upkeep and things like that. And we're seeing young professionals, they want to come home after work and unwind, and yard work and things like that for a rental property are just not something that's on their top 10 list. Again, you know, one of the things said was, why rush it? Well, we've been waiting about 20 years. So I think the need is here, and we've waited and we've done our due diligence. And I appreciate all the time that you guys will put into making sure exactly what is needed will happen. Also, I'm excited that Mr. Villarreal is the one who is part of this, because we all know he's vested in Decatur. He's part of Decatur. He has planted roots in Decatur, and I can't imagine anything that he would do would be something that we wouldn't all be proud of. So we are here to say we are here for it and we need it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Crystal Brown, Crystal Brown, 1904 Weatherly Circle Southwest. I can't really add anything to what has been stated from the Residential Development Task Team. I can say that I'm happy that they're here today. We're very sensitive to the neighbors, of course, and I would say to you that we've talked a lot about young professionals, but there is a population of older professionals and those that are retiring that are looking for housing, such as Mr. Villarreal's project. Those folks come into the chamber on a weekly basis, and unfortunately we have to turn them away and say we don't have anything to offer. So we've been told, as Jack mentioned, that it needed to be someone probably that was homegrown and someone who had a vested interest in our community. And I just wanted to say thank you for investing and considering investing in our community. That's important because you are a known entity, and I'm sure you will do something that we'll all be proud of. We want to continue. I was in a meeting this morning in Huntsville, and I would say that those 5,000 units that we saw that are being developed in 2021, that number will increase in 2022. There's not a vacant place along 65 that you can find that's not being developed with multifamily. And so we continue to lose, and we desperately need a project such as this. And so we thank you for your consideration. We would appreciate a favorable vote. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Villarreal, we'll let him go next.
Oh, sure, we got somebody else?
My name's Greg Blythe, and I live at 3207 Old River Road, and my property backs up to the Villarreal property. And I want to thank Mr. Villarreal for coming to see me and really trying to help me. And I'm really, hopefully, trying to help him, because I don't think that this planning commission has looked into helping him. If he gets this rezoned and starts developing, and he finds out that it's not cost, available because of the flooding and because of other issues, environmental issues, EPA issues, Corps of Engineers, there'll have to be a bridge built. I'm not sure. I know I was a farmer and I couldn't do this on my farm if I wanted to. So the planning commission might be liable, and the city commission, city council, and the mayor may be liable if Mr. Villarreal starts building this and you've given him permission, and then you can't provide him with the services that he needs. I'm sure that he's looked into this, but I live there, and there's at least an 8-foot deep ditch, about 8 feet wide, that drains the property, his property. And if he fills that ditch in, it will back the water up to my property, several other landowner properties. And by doing that, the city would be responsible for that. So if you zone this, you will be opening yourself up, I think, to some problems. Does the city have the money to provide the infrastructure that Mr. Villarreal will need? That's another question. Ms. Higdon wants the Planning Commission to know that all the adjoining property owners were not notified of this meeting. I'm not sure if this meeting is it legal to petition for annexation, pre-annexation, be filed without notifying the property owners around. I wasn't notified. I was a flyer put on my mailbox, and Mr. Villarreal was nice enough to come out and tell me what he was going to do. So I really think that you've got the cart before the horse, and that you may want to do some research, engineering, because I'm sure that Environmental Protection Agency, the Wildlife Refuge, EPA, I know the Corps of Engineers because I've dealt with them, they're going to not approve a bridge that will stop the water. There is another property owner, which is a church. Are y'all familiar with this area? The church floods every time there's a 2-inch rain, the property does. At one time, the church actually overflowed and had to be done. If this water is channeled into that property by Decatur or by whoever, the developer, it will definitely flood that. And if they change the direction of the creek that already flows through there, it will definitely flood. So I'm sure that Corps of Engineers need to do this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just want to ask about the note. Mr. Blythe, you did say you had a flyer on your mailbox.
was stuck behind the, thing, but none of my neighbors got it. Anybody in here got a flower? And there are several houses that are gonna be 30 feet from this that they don't know about.
I would just ask the planning department that we notify each adjacent property owner.
Yes, sir, we did.
No, sir, they did not. They did not. Did not.
Okay. Okay, and the placard has been placed out there?
That's correct.
Okay.
No placards have been placed yet.
Haven't seen one. I drive that road every day.
The other thing that I would say is the survey of 2020, there are only 5 houses or 6 houses being occupied right now in the subdivision across from my house. And there's a plan for hundreds of houses.
Well, the traffic study that Mr. Terry did took into account the full development of all of it. Yes. And where's the placard placed?
It is on Upper River Road. It is the mandatory 5 feet off of the road. And Jimmy and I put it out in compliance with this meeting.
And I will say, I have personally seen it. Okay. Yes, sir, Mr. Villarreal.
My name is Andy Villarreal, and I reside at 1322 Brentwood Lane Southeast, and also am the owner of the property that's looking to be pre-zoned. So just give you a little background. My wife and I have owned this property for 37 years. Of course, we bought it to originally move our family out there, but all of our money went into our business and to grow our business, and we never did anything. So, but you know, at this point, I've reached out to as many of the homeowners as I possibly could to let them know exactly what we were thinking. But you know, it just over the 37 years, as I told them, I mean, I had plenty of opportunities to sell the property. We went as far as having somebody come out and check the property to see if it perked right to be able to put in something else that would do for our, you know, sewer purposes, which it passed. And so we were probably within, I would say, a month of closing with somebody that would probably have put a mobile home park there. My wife and I decided that was not what we wanted there, and that we just held on to the property. We just didn't feel like that was the right use for it or the right thing to put next to the people that were out there. So we didn't, and we've had plenty of opportunities to sell that property to other people that, when we found out what they were going to put there, we just didn't feel it was right. You know, probably 1.5 miles from this site, I've got a $2.5 million investment in Burning Tree Country Club. So it you know, it's important to me that something goes on this property that enhances the property, enhances the area around it, and that gives something to the city that is dearly needed. I also have other businesses in the city, and that when I brought people in to work in my businesses, I couldn't put them up in the city of Decatur. I had to move them to Madison because there was not an apartment complex that I would put my people up in that would, you know, that would suit me. So I ended up putting them in Madison. And so, you know, that's what drew us a lot to start looking at this. My son and his father-in-law has done probably 6 to 8 of these type or larger kind of things over outside of, not in Atlanta, but outside of Atlanta. And we intend for them to be part of this project. And so they've done them before. They know what they take. This is going to be a $20 to $25 million investment. So it's no small investment for us, in that we try to do as much of our homework beforehand as we possibly can, because that's a big amount to have to repay. So we have to build something that is going to give us that return, and that's going to give us those rents of $1,300 to $1,700 a month. We feel like there's probably, when we look at the project, it's going to probably be about 175 to 200 units. And those would be 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom units. And so, you know, they will definitely be upscale units, you know, very, very nice on the inside. landscaped on the outside. We intend to try to leave as much buffer that is already there with the mature trees that are already there on the fence line to Hickory Hills, is leaving as many of those as we possibly can, and where we can't, or where there is none, then we'll provide a buffer there for that area. So, you know, it's look, I know it don't make everybody happy. It's just that at some point we have to look at our property and decide what are we going to do with it. And you know, I don't want to, you know, either do it myself or sell the property to somebody that's going to put something there that you're definitely not going to like. And right now, that's, you know, if we can't get the proper zoning, then we're pretty much, we don't have any other choice, because we've got to look at our property and figure out, you know, investment wise, what's the best investment for us to do. I had somebody even call me a greedy investor, but anybody that knows me and what I've done in this city, you know, we took over Burning Tree 4 years ago, and it probably put over $1 million in it. We haven't made a penny to this day, and we probably don't look at making a lot of money, but it was important to me to keep that club here and to make it a club that the city of Decatur can be proud of, and that when we have young professionals move in, yes, there's some things out there that those people want, and so it's a need in our city. So it's not a point of being greedy. It's a point of, hey, what does the city need? What do we need here to bring in and have a place for people to go that, you know, like you said, we haven't had things built in 20 years, so.
We can stop him now. I sort of felt like people wanted to hear what he had to say since he's the developer, so.
If I can say something else, I'd be glad for him to go ahead.
We'll allow you to come up again, yes. Is any objection to hear him out? Okay. Okay. What does that do? Wrap it up.
Yeah, it's fine. So, you know, I hope that the council, that y'all take that into consideration, and that, you know, not only look at what this does, but what it will do if it doesn't happen.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody that has not spoke, wish to speak? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm Bob Casters. I live at 2707 Hunterwood Drive, which is in Division 1 of Hickory Hills, which immediately backs up on the property Mr. Villarreal wants to develop. I hear and support the growth of Decatur, but by the same token, I worry about the impact on the character of our community there. 30 feet is not much offset. If you start landscaping it, you're looking at 10 plus years to mature landscaping enough to buffer sound and sight. Unless you're going to pay the money it costs to bring in mature trees, that would be exorbitant. No one, until Mr. Hill came around yesterday, had mentioned this meeting or that development to me. No one. So I can't speak for all of the folks in Division 1. Division 1, raise your hand. Okay, there's a few of us here. Your privacy on the people on that lower end of Hunterwood is going to be gone for some period of time. You're adding whatever your number of vehicles is to an already congested area. And I understand morning and afternoon, but I call BS on it. I drive morning and afternoon on Upper River Road. I have problems getting out of Mountain View now onto Upper River Road, and heaven help you if you go back to that blinking light that was mentioned, which is not the one at Publix. It's the one right by the used material place there. And if you try to make a left turn there, you're likely to die. And the simple answer is, I don't. I'm smart enough not to. But the congestion that this is going to bring, along with all of the houses over in the other development, morning and afternoon, that's when people move to live. That's when people go to work. That's when they leave home to go to the grocery store. Those are the periods of time that should be considered. And until the city can put in the safety measures that it needs, if I saw the Plat here, you're going to need a light where this development comes out on the street, on the highway. We really need another light caution at least where you go into the Publix parking lot. And you're going to need a light when you straighten out the Old River, Upper River intersection crossing. And that needs to happen. I'm in full support of that. It needs to happen. But there's things that with this that just need a little more study perhaps to convince me that this is good for our neighborhood. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Commissioners, good afternoon. Thank you for your service to our city. It's a very important job, and I appreciate the time and effort that you put into it. Thank you, Chairman Lawrence, for allowing us to speak today. Some of you may know, 2016 to 2020, I was the representative for District 3 on the council here in the city of Decatur, and I also live in Hickory Hills. Now, during that time period, it came to the desk of the council of the Morris development. We all know that, and we had several meetings. In fact, Crystal, thank you, the chamber assisted us in a meeting there at the chamber, and we had several, Ms. Blythe. I think we had 3 or 4 meetings that were public, and we addressed concerns.
Chairman, we need a name and address for the record.
Paige Bibby, 2804 Sylvia Drive, Decatur, Alabama, 35603.
Their name, not her specific address.
So I appreciate in the beginning all of the meetings, the correspondence to the residents. It worked out. We compromised. If you remember, everybody in this room that was in those meetings, we compromised. Were the people that directly adjacent to that community, were they happy about it? No, they were not. They were not happy with me, and I had to see them every day in my community. That was hard. And I'm not against growth. I'm, in fact, for growth for the city of Decatur and for development. But with that development, we compromised, and we found an even ground that was palatable for everyone. So today I have a couple of questions, and I agree, and Kent, I'm not saying it's not there. I actually went before this meeting and took pictures of the property. That placard is not there now. I have a video. It may have fallen down, but it wasn't there today. So number one question is, why R4? The Morris development, which we took great pains, went to R3. And it could accommodate the townhomes as well as the single-family homes. And we actually had the meeting at the chamber, and we had the young professionals come, and they were talking about how they needed housing opportunities. And in fact, I was very excited about this development. And it seemed as if at the time the chamber and the young professionals were excited too. But now it seems like they've forgotten that development, which is not full, by the way. That is, we only did 50 acres. There's more like 100 acres that is available for building. So that's my first question. Why not consider R3? You could put townhomes, things like that, they are really butted up to the back of Hunterwood. Two, asking the question of, with the Morris property, Mr. Morris agreed to an agreement. And this was really the first time the city of Decatur had done that. Really what it was accountability to the developer, that when he came in and pitched his pitch to the city about the development, that it would be the standard that he said, and it would not be any less of a standard. He signed that. First time that Wally Terry told me that had ever been done in the city of Decatur. Mr. Morris was not happy in the beginning, but he did come back and he signed it. In fact, I have a copy of that letter, and you can actually get it as public domain. Wondering if that has been asked of Mr. Villarreal, of what you're bringing to us today, a type A, gated community apartments. Will you sign on the dotted line? And if you don't, then you reimburse the city. You take the responsibility for what did not happen. That's the question. I'd like to be made public, which already is public, but it may be difficult for some of just residents to find, a copy of the easements that we took. We actually had 2 easements we had to obtain. One was from Mr. Villarreal for the sewer to go to be brought up to Mr. Morris's property. I do believe he actually gifted that to the city, but he does have hookup right in his front yard, of course. Next door was Miss Sandra Ball. The city did purchase that, I believe, for $5,000. But I've already asked planning. I'd like that to be made public again to anyone who'd like those. Again, I have those, and I will make them public myself if anybody wants to call me if you don't get that. The next question, which has been addressed, the sewer hookup. When we, in the 19, passed the Morris property, that was my first question about the sewer hookups that would be provided to the Hickory Hills, Rolling Hills area. And I was rather excited because it's only several hundred yards. But I was told at that time the sewer could not come that direction towards 67 due to it would require a lift station. Because we do go uphill there. In fact, I'm actually on the crest of that hill. So to get sewer to my home, the lift station would have to happen. And so I'm curious now why all of a sudden it can go to a property, probably because he did give us the access to use the frontage of his property for sewer hookup, but I'm not sure that the water will go without something line to push it rather than gravity flown. So that may be something you want to look at. 8, traffic. That is an issue. In the spring of 2020, I actually attended a meeting that ALDOT was there. The communities of Priceville, City of Decatur, Morgan County were there. It actually took place at the Priceville City Hall. It was a meeting that was, I don't even know that it was really public, but it should have been. ALDOT addressed every one of those 14 issues that we talked about. I think Lee spoke about them. Unfortunately, that was in 20. We're looking at 22 now with no plan still. And that is the realignment of Indian Hills Road, which has got to be done. In fact, that was with the passing of the Morris property. That would immediately take place. That road would be straightened. That has not even been addressed. Also in that meeting from ALDOT, the 67 and Upper River Road will have a red light, but no plans for that. And again, you do have to have money. You have to look long-term at how you're going to address these problems. And since 20, the Morris property has been there, but we still have not addressed what we said we would address for that property. So we continue to build up what we need to take care of.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you to wrap up.
Okay, infrastructure is important. Drainage is important. And also, we did have to work with this Army Corps of Engineers for the public shopping center. That will probably have to take place for anything of this development. Are there any incentives that have been asked for from Mr. Villarreal to the city? If not, will there be? And if there have, will those be made public before you vote? And the last thing I'll say is on July 23rd, 2020, there was a meeting right here with the Planning Commission. It was 32 acres at City View Farm. Mr. Lang wanted to have that rezoned to same thing we're looking at now. In fact, he said it was going to be an upscale, gated apartment community. It's in the paper. You can look at it. I've got the Decatur Daily. I'll give you the exact date.
Okay,
was
well,
in there.
Mr. Lane brought his property back to be zoned Ag 1.
That was after it was denied that they.
Not by the Planning Commission. That was denied by the Board of Zoning Adjustment.
Okay. It's on YouTube. We'll say that. YouTube, July 21st, 2020, if you'd like to watch it, the Board of Adjustments.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to wrap up.
Okay. And that's just some of the things that we have, but we know that there are things from the Morris property we have not addressed yet. We're only continuing to make the infrastructure problem more. And I agree with the flooding, and it's not for my personal gain. I'm probably furthest away in this neighborhood to even see the impact of this. Traffic is a problem, and we can look at the city's influx of cars. I don't think you're taking into consideration the Priceville increase in residential growth back there. But nevertheless, I appreciate your time, and thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, I'm going to address the thing about the Planning Commission because that apartment on Mr. Lane's property was not something that was brought before the Planning Commission. That property was zoned institutional, is that correct? Yes. Which allowed apartments on a variance request, and that goes to the Board of Zoning Adjustment. And that's where that went and was denied. Later, Mr. Lang wanted to bring that property back to Ag 1 from R3, and we denied that, taking it back to Ag 1. Do we want to answer some of those? As far as I know, there's no incentives that's been asked for or any of those, just.
To my knowledge, there's been no discussion of any incentives for this development, and yes, any incentives would have to be approved by the council, so that would be public record.
Okay. Mayor?
My name's Tab Bolden. I serve as mayor of the city of Decatur. I live at 1907 Weatherly Circle, and thank y'all for your time and for all the residents that are here today. I want to talk about the intersection that Mr. Terry addressed at River Road and 67. That is something that the council has budgeted, that we've discussed in all of our finance committee meetings as far as improving that intersection. So that will come with also a traffic signal there, not just a flashing light to allow clear passage for traffic. I also want to talk about the fact that back in 1992 as a young JC, I had the privilege of meeting Andy Villarreal and his brother Rick. And they had moved here to Decatur to start Domino's Pizza. And that was back whenever you could get a pizza free if they didn't get it to you in 30 minutes. And not only did they bring Domino's to Decatur, but they were one of the best corporate citizens of helping out organizations that needed food for events and things of that nature. They truly contributed to the city. We look at Ronnie Dukes, who's been here all of his life. He's one that does that, and people know him as the man that never says no. But had he not moved here, I would have never gotten to meet this wonderful family and the difference that they've made in this community. And that's what we're looking for now, are more young folks like Andy and Rick Villarreal who will move to our city that we have no idea what leaders they'll be and the kind of difference that they'll make here. I've talked about it before this commission a couple of times, and so I'm going to take the opportunity to do it again today, but we're talking about future leaders in our sports leagues, future teachers in our churches. We know that Dr. Douglas will, at the end of this year, need to hire somewhere around 100 new educators because of retirements, tenure, things of that nature, and they're going to need a place to stay. Will these departments be done by then? No, but we've got to get started. We need to make a place. So I think a lot of things have been covered in here today. I don't want to be repetitive and talk about the things that you've already heard. I think you get it, and I hope that you'll find favor with the request today as presented by the Villarreal development. Thank you.
Mr. Pike, how much time you got left?
10 minutes.
Anybody else wish to speak?
At least submit some pictures or photos
Sure,
for consideration.
yes, sure can.
This is the flooding areas back on Miss Hictor's property and back behind my house. Also, Mr. Villarreal's 11th grade teacher, Ms. Seek, asked me, did he not learn anything from his botany class in high school? By the way, Mr. Villarreal has been really nice in answering a lot of my questions and our concerns. Or at least, sorry. Thank you. I wish I'd had an opportunity to label them and such, but.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Lyle Blythe, and I live at 3207 Old River Road. Our land backs up directly on the apartments. We have a farm there, so there are animals, cows, which is not a problem for me because they're far away from my house. But it would be 30 feet up to these people that move into apartments if that happens. One thing I want you to know about the car count, I live on Old River Road, and so when I see those cars out there counting, they stay no more than 2 hours. They're never there very long. I wouldn't really trust their count. The plan that is to do something about Upper River Road, when we were dealing with the Morris property across from us, this puts Morris property across from us, this behind us directly. And they said at that point that it was a 10-year plan. So I don't anticipate that that will happen anytime soon. And I want growth for Decatur, but I want it in the right place. It looks to me like, and I've said this before, the prime land is right there by Target. There's Target land right there. People that would live in these apartments would want to go to Target and Panera Bread, and they would love living there. One more thing to consider, Huntsville is not building apartments near residential areas. Just something to be considered. Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak? I'll give you another minute. Well, hold. You'll be next, Esther.
Thank you, Kent. I'm Tracy Tubbs. I live at 2706 Hunterwood Drive with no notification either, Bob. Let me just ask, and I know how this works, but traffic. Has anyone driven out of Publix in a storm and turned left on Upper River Road at night? It is dark as an Egyptian tomb. We were told when this development all happened that safety was going to be the primary concern. Now, I've heard that that intersection is going to be improved. It's going to have to be improved. It's going to handle that kind of traffic. I'm for progress. I'm not a progressive, but I'm for progress in Decatur. We have the wrong thing going in the wrong place. And R4 doesn't belong butted up to a settled, old, 1960s subdivision that a lot of us have settled in for our homes. Now, that being said, it was brought up about City View Farms. When that was proposed, that was stopped. And yes, one way or the other, whether it was the Zoning Commission, which I've served before, or here, I don't remember, but it was stopped. When Point Mallard was asked about this, it was stopped. When apartments were attempted or discussed at Burning Tree, it was stopped. I think we need to ask, as Hickory Hills subdivision, and I've lived there since 1998, that we be heard. Yes, all of this that has been presented today has been very nice. It's nice to see people, community involved. I've always been. I've lived here since 1986. I love the town, but I love my neighborhood. Now, the traffic situation, I think is imperative if we just stop with the Morris development. There was some concession made over there. R3 is working out, but think about it. You're going to put an R4 next to a new R3 subdivision? You're going to zone it for that? That just is a R4 sandwiched in between two residential subdivisions that will be settled is just not the place. I would appreciate your consideration about that because there are places in the city that would work better. And the other thing that I might mention is character of the neighborhood. This is a settled, again, single-family residence type situation. Mr. Morris's development is headed to be the same way, even though there are some townhomes. I understand that. But it would appear to me that this is sandwiched in between a place that I don't understand why we just suddenly have to hammer that one place to get apartments for our town. It just seems like there are other places that would be available and be much more conducive to what you're talking about doing. Thank you very much.
I would like to say that Andy Villarreal is a fine, upstanding citizen, and I tell you, I really appreciate what he's trying to do. The question I have is, if you help him or by rezoning this without public comment and without legal representation, and the wildlife will not let you put lights out where we live. When they built Publix, they made requirements that you couldn't have lights out there for some reason. I don't know why it interferes with the bird. This land joins is very, very close to the wildlife. So I think that wildlife, EPA, Corps of Engineers, if they try to build a bridge and it stops.
You brought the bridge up.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, if Mr. Villarreal hadn't been advised of this, I would think that he needs to be advised of all this before he goes any further. The subdivision, Marsh subdivision, said they would build a holding pond, and I don't know if y'all been out there, but it's a pretty sizable holding pond. If Mr. Villarreal has to build a holding pond, and that's what we would ask for before he builds legally, is that he would have to do away with at least 5 or 6 of those townhomes. So, I mean, apartments. So I think I'm pulling for Mr. Villarreal and the mayor, but I don't want them to get in trouble later on, and y'all will be the ones that cause the trouble if you approve it.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, if not, do we have a motion to recommend this request to the council?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Temple,
Second.
second by Mr. Borton. Any questions or comments from anyone on the commission?
I think you need to tell all this other stuff we will address as the property progress.
Say that again now.
All of the issues they have, drainage and lighting, will be addressed.
Okay.
You know.
Ms. Tate wants us to talk about some of the things you brought up, and I covered it some earlier. Things with drainage, lighting, bridges, all those kind of things will have to be engineered and approved. You know, just because we pre-zone this today doesn't mean that he can go out and do whatever he wants to do. You know, engineering will have to look at drainage and determine retention and retention ponds and all those kind of things. So that is a step that happens. It's not today, it's later on. All we're doing today is pre-zoning the property to let Mr. Villarreal know that yes, he could build this development there if the council votes that away and if they annex it into the city. So that would be the next step, is to annex it. Then after that, it would be site plan approval, which comes back to us in a hearing like this. So those things are addressed. And as far as the traffic, you know, back from the original time out there, we understood all that. And we feel like that the city is working toward resolving those problems. And I stated that earlier. I've had that discussion with most every council member that, you know, those intersections have got to be improved, and the sooner the better. So it's not like we're just moving forward with not addressing these things. Is there anything else that I missed there? All right. Any other comments or questions? All right, please call the roll.
Lawrence?
Yes.
Borden?
Yes.
Tate?
Yes.
Wynn?
Yes.
Temple?
Yes.
Burris?
Yes.
Culpepper?
Yes.
Pike?
And Mr. Pike left. So this will move forward to the city council with a 7-0 vote to approve. Now, anybody that wish to leave now, you can or you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. I'm going to call a 2-minute recess. Okay? Joseph, I'm calling a 2-minute recess.
Yeah.
I'll be better about 10 tonight when we get out of here.
Request.
All right, the next item is rezoning 138522. It is 18.27 acres. Current zone is R6 Residential District. Applicant is Pewright McAnally for Adam Davidson. The location 3411 Deer Road Southeast. The request, rezone approximately 18.27 acres from R6 to R5 patio homes. The new zone would be R5 residential, single-family patio home. The one Decatur future land use is mixed neighborhood, and the one Decatur street typology, Deer Road is a local street. Comments from the zoning committee. The zoning committee was in favor of this request. No conditions to be met, and any relocation of utilities will be at the owner's expense.
Okay, is there anyone from the public that would wish to speak to this request? Yes, sir. Come forward.
John Tadlock, 3215 Old River Road, Southeast, Decatur, Alabama. So
I guess my question is, it's gonna go back to the traffic again. Do we know how many units is going in there?
Okay, I'll say this is going from R6 to R5, which is lower density.
Okay.
So this will reduce the traffic count that is already approved for this subdivision.
Okay. Is the traffic count on this, was that factored in on the other? No. Yep.
That was not, because their main access is to the south, to the red light at 67. That will be the main flow of traffic. It would be a minimal heading the other direction. That was the determination of looking at all the factors, would be the general flow of traffic down to the light at 67 and Deer Road.
Okay.
So we're saying that no traffic is gonna come out onto Upper River Road?
Not no.
Or do we know?
Well, no, we don't know, but the assumption is from someone that's dealt with traffic pretty much all his career, is that people will take the shortest distance or the easiest distance. And it makes a lot more sense that they're gonna go out and go to the traffic light on Deer Road and 67 versus going back the other way.
Not necessarily.
I agree, not necessarily, but most people will.
And the reason why I know this is because whenever we go to town, we used to go down the intersection of 67 and Upper River Road.
Right.
It backs up. Now we either go to the light on Indian Hills Road, which by the way is on no trucks.
But sir,
there's trucks coming down that road, tractor trailer trucks.
If your issue is traffic,
No.
this reduces the traffic.
But what I'm saying, if you're gonna have an outlet on Upper River Road, then people are gonna go that way, and either they're gonna go right or left, so it's gonna add to.
It doesn't have an outlet to Upper River Road.
Okay, well, that's what I asked. Did anybody know what was
Oh, it goes to Deer Road.
So everything's gonna go to Deer Road?
Yes, sir.
And nothing is gonna go to Upper River Road?
That's correct.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Take a look on Indian Hills Road.
Anyone else? Okay, do we have a motion to recommend this to the council?
Motion for approval.
Motion by Mr. Borden.
Second.
Second by Mr. Temple. Any questions or comments from anyone on the commission? Please call the roll.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Borden.
Yes.
Tate.
Yes.
Wynn.
Yes.
Temple.
Yes.
Burrows.
Yes.
Culpepper.
Yes.
Okay, this will move to the city council with a recommendation of 7-0.
The next case, rezoning 138622. It is approximately 3.51 acres. Current zone is B1 Local Shopping District. The applicant is, and forgive me, Suresh Bhai Patel. The location 1811 11th Street Southeast. Request is to rezone approximately 3.51 acres from B1 to B2. The new zoning would be B2 General Business. Proposed land use commercial. One Decatur future land use is neighborhood commercial. The One Decatur street typology, 11th Street, is an urban collector. The comments from the zoning committee on this one, the zoning committee was not in favor of this request. There were no conditions to be met, and any relocation of utilities will be at the owner's expense.
Okay, anyone wish to speak to this request? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Lisa Chadwell. I manage and I also reside at Granada Apartments on 11th Street Southeast. We were here a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I can't remember. But my concern is not so much for what he's asking for alcohol sales. It is more for the rezoning issue in itself and the type of business it will bring into our neighborhood. As we were here, I said 2 or 3 years ago for the same request, my position is still the same. We are a residential section. This Morningside property and the strip across the street are literally feet from my residents' back doors. Not only do we share a property line with them, but the Baptist Children's Home share the property line, and Oak Park Elementary School is right there next door. Not to mention the children that walk to and from school through this property all the time from the neighborhood surrounding it. And the school bus lets off very close to there, and my concern is with the traffic and the type of business that they would allow to come into those storefronts there. I have a picture of how close my townhomes are to the strip on the north side, along with some of the condition that they have the property in that's not so good. But I know that's a different matter in getting it cleaned up, but that's all I have to say, just the type of businesses that would bring in, and my concern for that and the people that reside there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name is Rizul Patel, and I'm located on 1811 Street. I have a business over there already. My father owns shopping centers. Reason we rezoning about growing the property right there. Thinking about building a liquor store across the street, the empty lot right there, and wherever the Domino used to be right there, they have a block in the building. So we talking about a building department to remove the blocks. We have to hire architects and everybody's. But it's gonna cost a lot of money. So might as well just build in a whole new liquor store with the own premium beer inside it, so people can come in and eat, drink a little bit, and go home. And they can do tap beer too on top of that. And on other building, 1811 Street, we're building restaurants over there, so people come in inside and sit around like pretty much Indian restaurant pretty much. So, and I did provide you for 104 people's signature with the southeast side. They don't have an issue with the B1 to B2. That's all. Thank you.
Can I ask you that everyone that signed that, are they aware of what all businesses can be in a
Yes,
B2?
they know about it. What's the reason I'm doing a B2? I told them I'm going to bring in a liquor store with own premium beers.
Okay, but did they know all the other businesses? Did you give them a copy of what the zoning allows in B2, or just talk about liquor?
I did talk about it. My main problem is it across the street right there. The empty lot, building a liquor store right there with the beers, wine, on premium beers and liquor pretty much right there.
Okay. Let me ask you this direct question. Did you explain to them that could also be used car lots there in a B2?
Everybody know about that one too, but
Did you explain it to them?
I did explain them too.
Okay.
And my dad was kind of not familiar to about these property things, about B1 and B2 things. And by accidentally, he did provide somebody to have office right there for car lot things, but he's not putting the cars over there. He just have office right there. That's it. He's not bringing the cars because we talk about that thing too.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, this paragraph at the top of this petition only references alcohol sales.
Yes, sir. Liquor is pretty much his alcohol sales here.
Right, that's what I'm talking about. It doesn't say anything about used cars,
No,
lots.
we're not doing it car lots. They have an office over there for just
Okay,
office for paperwork.
but what I'm saying, B2 does allow for that.
Yes.
So if we rezone it B2, that can happen there.
It's not going to happen because we're not going to do an application for car lots programs.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
When we were here before, he was prohibited from having, because he did have cars there.
Right.
He was prohibited from having more than 2 cars there.
That's right.
at a time, so.
That's right.
But that's his his own cars, so he can have.
Right, and that's why he could have two, because you can have your own.
Yeah, because whoever the guy renting from us, he have a cars, he can take it somewhere else, but he can park right there.
Right.
We can't be telling him you can't be parking a car with the for sale signs on it.
Yeah. Her point is that it's not a used car lot. She's saying that he was told that you're going
We
to
won't be having
have.
their cars over there being parked up in the shopping center, because that empty lot, we're building something over there. That's the reason you don't need to.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, if not, do we have a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, that's right, we do have the email.
That is good to mention here
Yes.
that the commission has been provided every call or email that was received, as well as copies of the petition that were provided by the property owner are all there for your review as well.
Did everyone get a chance to see that? Okay. Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion for approval?
Okay, a motion to deny, right?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Okay, motion to
You need to go to motion to
approve and then vote it down.
And then
Okay.
do it, and get it on the floor.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's hard to, it messes people's mind up if you go the reverse.
It does mine for
I
sure.
may be one of them.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Borden, second by Mr. Temple. Any other discussion from the commission? Please call the roll.
Lawrence,
No?
Gordon,
No.
Tate,
No.
Wynn,
No.
Temple,
No.
Burris,
No.
Culpepper.
No.
Okay, that's denied. Okay. Unanimous vote. Okay.
The next item, rezoning 138722, 1.52 acres, currently zoned R2 single family. Applicant is Purite McAnally for Danny Hill. Location 809 Carradale Street Southwest, and the request is to rezone 1.52 acres from R2 to R6. The new zone would be R6 single family semi-attached. The One Decatur future land use is core neighborhood, and One Decatur street typology, Carradale Street Southwest, is a minor arterial. Comments from the zoning committee. The zoning committee was in favor of this request. There are no conditions to be met, and point of information, any relocation of utilities will be at the owner's expense.
Okay, is there anyone that would wish to speak to this request? Okay, if not, do we have a motion to recommend to the council? Motion by Mr. Temple. We have a second.
Second.
Second. Okay, Mr. Wynn. Any questions or comments from anyone on the commission? Please call the roll.
Lawrence,
Yes.
Gordon,
Yes.
Tate,
Yes.
Wynn,
Yes.
Temple,
Yes.
Burris,
Yes.
Culpepper.
Yes.
Okay, another 7-0 vote to recommend approval to the council.
The next case, rezoning 138822. It is 5.22 acres. Current zone is R3, single-family residential. The applicant is Purite McAnally from Morris Development. The location is Joseph Drive Southeast. The request is to rezone 5.22 acres from R3 to R6. New zone would be R6, single-family semi-attached. Proposed land use is single-family semi-attached residential. One Decatur future land use is mixed neighborhood, and One Decatur street typology, Joseph Drive Southeast, is a local street. The comments from the zoning committee. The zoning committee was in favor of this request, but they will heavily factor in the comments from the neighbors at the planning commission meeting, especially considering this subdivision was recently platted. The only condition on this is a copy of the deed is needed. Point of information, any relocation of utilities will be at the owner's expense. And I would ask you to remember the comments that were delivered already about this item.
From Ms. Whitaker, correct?
Yes.
And she has left. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak to this? Yes, ma'am.
Kathy Hughes, 3015 Old River Road, and I'm going to reiterate the concerns that have already been mentioned. May I have a show of hands of how many of you have actually been out to this subdivision? How many of you have been out to this subdivision within the last month? Do you realize at this point that the Decatur City Sanitation Department's sanitation trucks are having to back into these streets? There's no turnarounds. Some of these issues have been mentioned before. They're still under construction, then there's no barriers to keep that silt from going into the creek that was mentioned beforehand. We're that close to the wildlife refuge. One of the most valuable resources this area has. And the environmental concerns at this point, they've been mentioned before. They are there. We've already dealt with things that have gone on with our river. To the citizens of this town's dismay that things have happened. I'm asking that you consider that this not be rezoned as such, because we're just adding to a problem that is going to have to be addressed by those entities that have already been mentioned. The Corps of Engineers. Environmental studies haven't been done, or somebody's not watching. The hen house is open. And our former council member mentioned some facts that, yes, those things were promised and they haven't happened. I am a citizen of Decatur. I've been here for a while. My question is, why are we representing somebody that's not even here in these concerns? I realize growth. But why that area when it's so vulnerable to these environmental issues? And it's so risky, and it's been mentioned before. It is so risky for those that are making those decisions. So I would ask that you not change this. The first plat we saw was for single-family housing. And now we see this. What's going to happen next? That's my question. So I ask that this planning commission, with the One Decatur plan in mind, look at those aspects of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am, are you speaking towards specifically the rezoning or development in general?
The rezoning, we don't need more places. Yes, that's what I'm speaking against.
Okay.
But I'm addressing some issues that have already been brought up, if that's your question. Yes.
My name is Peyton Morris. I live at 2038 Stratford Court, Southeast. I'm representing Morris Development. So the issue that we've had over the last year, as everybody knows, construction costs have risen. So we're looking at a way that we can deliver homes in the 200s like we had originally planned on. These homes that we're planning are single family. We want to build something that blends in with the neighborhood well, and I have spoken with a lot of the people that we've pre-sold homes to, and those that we've already sold to, and the majority are okay with this.
Do you have any emails or anything from them?
I can provide that at a.
Okay, but you don't have it with you right now?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Real quickly, I'll allow you.
Yes, absolutely. How many of those people that are now in residence in that subdivision were notified of this?
Everyone.
That now owns property in that subdivision?
Yes.
And in the Davison subdivision also?
I can't speak to that.
He doesn't have anything to do with the Davison, and this does.
It's right there.
But what I'm saying is, he can't answer that because he's
Can
not the one
you?
who notified him. Can you tell us, Matthew?
Yes, ma'am, I can tell you the process that we do is we draw a 500-foot buffer around any of the properties that are gonna be rezoned. And then we go out and we put out that individual handbill that we put inside the flag on your mailbox. So we did notify the people just south of where you're talking about.
There's no street signs.
There is a street sign, on, what's the road? Joseph Trail. Yes, ma'am. There is one street sign.
I drive out there every day.
Okay.
I didn't see it.
Okay.
It's not visible.
Well, and the handbills are sort of a separate matter. We do put the handbills up so each individual owner knows that there's a rezoning that's gonna be occurring. And it gives the time and the location so they can attend the meeting.
Anyone else? Okay, do we have a motion? Motion to approve. Motion by Mr. Temple. A second.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Tate. Any questions or comments from anyone on the commission? Okay, please call the roll.
Lawrence,
No.
Gordon,
Yes.
Tate,
No.
Quinn,
No.
Temple,
Yes.
Burris,
Yes.
Culpepper,
No.
Okay, that's 3 to 4, is that correct?
yes, sir,
3 yes and 4 no?
yes, sir.
I will tell you, my decision is based on the other people that have bought there. It was so recently platted, as we said before, that I feel like we have to protect those people that just bought, expecting that to be R3. And that's, I'm speaking for myself, that's where I am. All right. Now, the next part, it's been so long, I gotta remember to go back to this. The next part of our agenda is the consent agenda. This is the part of the agenda that Planning Commission has the final decision and does not require a public hearing. These items are read together and voted on as a group. Today, we have these type requests. Certificates to subdivide. This is a one-step process to subdivide no more than 3 lots, or to consolidate lots, a survey is required. Layout plats give a general idea of the lot layout for a subdivision. If you wish to comment on any of the consent agenda items, you may do so after all items have been read. And if you wish to leave now, you're free to go. Take just a moment, let everybody get out. Okay.
All right, certificate 356822 is 0.48 acres, currently zoned R3 Single Family Residential. Applicant is X Realm Incorporated for Sheila Cloud, location 1025 Johnston Street Southeast. The request is to subdivide one parcel of 0.48 acres into 2 parcels of .24 acres each. Proposed land use is residential. One Decatur future land use is core neighborhood. One Decatur street typology, Johnston Street Southeast is a local street. Conditions to be met, signed owner letter and a copy of the deed. And a point of information, any relocation of utilities will be at the owner's expense. Certificate 356922 is 4.83 acres, currently zoned R1 Single Family Residential. Applicant is X-Ram Incorporated for Fred O. Field. The location is 2305 Old River Road Southeast. The request is to subdivide one parcel of 4.83 acres into 2 parcels of 2.04 and 2.79 acres. Proposed land use is residential. One Decatur future land use is residential low density. And One Decatur street typology, Old River Road Southeast is a local street. Conditions to be met: 1, signed sealed survey with 3 state plane coordinates. 2, Joe Wheeler will need a 15-foot DUT easement along Walker Road. And 3, Joe Wheeler will need a 15-foot DUT easement on the north side of Lot A for the existing power line. And point of information, any relocation of utilities will be at the owner's expense.
Okay, is there
Next.
any, that's
One more.
one more?
Yes.
Okay.
The next is Glenmont Acres Subdivision Layout Plat. It is 58.3 acres, currently zoned R5 Single Family Patio Homes. Applicant is Purite McAnally for Greystone Properties of Decatur LLC and Land Services LLC. Location is Central Avenue Southwest and Pool Valley Road Southwest. Request is layout plat approval. Proposed land use is single-family residential. One Decatur future land use is mixed neighborhood. And One Decatur street typology, Central Avenue Southwest is a minor arterial. Conditions to be met, there are none. And point of information, any relocation of utilities will be at the owner's expense.
Okay, now, is there anyone that wishes to speak to any of these requests? Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Motion by Mr. Borden, second by Ms. Tate. Any comments or questions from anyone on the commission? Please call the roll.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Borden.
Yes.
Tate.
Yes.
Wynn.
Yes.
Temple.
Yes.
Burris.
Yes.
Culpepper.
Yes.
Okay, so all of those are approved. And now next we have a, tell me what we have here.
We're going back into a public hearing.
Public hearing,
Because
no, but what case, what are, we're looking at a
this is Glenmont Acres Phase 1 preliminary.
preliminary, that's the word I was looking
Yes.
for. So now we're going back into a public hearing for a preliminary, plat.
Yes, this is Phase 1 of the Glenmont Acres, which you just voted to approve the layout plat on. The total acreage on the site is 58.3 acres, this of course being a smaller section of that. Current zone is R5 residential, single-family patio homes. Applicant is Purite McAnally for Greystone Properties of Decatur LLC and Land Services LLC. Location is Central Avenue Southwest and Pool Valley Road Southwest. Request is preliminary plat approval. Proposed land use is single-family residential. One Decatur future land use is mixed neighborhood. And One Decatur street typology, Central Avenue Southwest is a minor arterial. Conditions to be met: 1, add street names to plat. 2, sign sealed construction drawings approved by DU and engineering. 3, handicap ramp detail. 4, per engineering approval, and 5, per DU approval. And point of information, any relocation of utilities will be at the owner's expense.
Okay, is there anyone from the public wish to speak to this request? Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Motion by Mr. Borden, second by Mr. Temple. Any questions or comments from the commission? Please call the roll.
Lawrence.
Yes?
Borden.
Yes.
Tate.
Yes.
Wynn.
Yes.
Temple.
Yes.
Burris.
Yes.
Culpepper.
Yes.
Okay, this preliminary plat is approved 7-0. Okay, now we move into other business. We have 3 items in other business that will be voted on individually. These items are vacation. This is when the city is asked to vacate public right-of-way or easements. And then we have 2 bond reviews. This is to review a bond to see if it can be adjusted to a lower amount based on work completed, or to review if an expiring bond will be extended or not. Once it is determined all requirements are met, a bond will be released and the file will be closed.
All right, the first we have is vacation 54022. Acreage is .15. Current zone is B5, Central Business District, and M1 Light Industry. Applicant is Purite McAnally for Decatur Urban Ventures. The location is Cherry Street Northwest, north of Bank Street. The request is to vacate .15 acres of right-of-way on Cherry Street Northwest. Proposed land use at this time is unknown. One Decatur future land use, urban core downtown. The One Decatur street typology, Cherry Street Northwest, is a local street. Conditions to be met: signed vacation package. DU will need an easement for utilities, width to be determined per field work. There will need to be some allowance for turnarounds on the other side, and if approved, additional right-of-way may be required for a turnaround. Points of information on this one: any relocation of utilities will be at the owner's expense. The recording of the vacation will be held until a plat is submitted dedicating the new right-of-way for the turnaround, and construction of the turnaround will be a condition of site plan approval. And I believe you...
Yeah, and I wanted to add somewhere how we need to do this, that this will not be recorded until a permit is purchased for construction.
So change the point of information on this one, or would we need to do a full condition?
Needs to be a condition.
Okay, a condition of the approval would be the recording of the vacation will be held until permits are pulled for construction of the project.
Okay, and
Yes.
McAnally, y'all, I know I talked to, y'all good with that? Okay.
So that point of information will be removed, and then that condition would be added there.
Okay. Anybody wish to speak to this? Okay, do we have a motion to recommend to the council to vacate this portion?
Let me ask you one question. They are putting townhomes right, what's going right there?
Okay. Originally, it was, I think the townhomes were on this side. We really don't know what they intend to do with all of it now.
The current request, and what this is trying to get them the answer on, is they want to know if they can do an apartment complex across these 2 blocks, and to be able to do that adequately, they are requesting this vacation.
Which B5 is already, you can have apartments in B5. So they may change their plan on the townhomes, and it really wasn't townhomes, it was more like cottages, right? Yeah, cottages.
They sent the image that we're showing sent today.
That's the current proposed layout, and you can see Cherry Street is being proposed for this vacation to become the entrance into the complex, with parking coming off both sides. And then the buildings would be built further out, basically almost to where the current road line is, so extending past the current property line. That's why this is being requested, so that they can accommodate everything on the site.
And just for the benefit of the members that weren't in technical review, this all, DU put their basically blessings on it, felt like that they could work with inside this. Okay, back to, we have a motion.
Motion approved.
Motion by Mr. Temple.
Second.
Second by Mr. Borden.
Mr. Chairman, the retention of the easement will be part of that vacation lane. Is that correct?
The condition will be that the recording of the vacation will be held until construction permits are obtained.
But there is a condition for DU will need an
Yes,
easement.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Yes, DU will retain an easement, and they'll determine the width of that easement after more field work has been, they need to locate exactly where that sewer line is, and then DU will determine based on depth and a few other factors how wide of an easement needs to be retained. But it's likely that it might be shy of the current right-of-way width.
That will be part of the.
But that will be part of, yes.
And then the thing with the building permit, we just don't want to vacate a public right-of-way until it needs to be. You know, so this way the developers will get their approval if the council sees to vacate this. And they can move forward. It doesn't stop them from moving forward. But as soon as they buy the permit to start building, we would vacate if the council so sees to go with that. Okay? Please call the roll.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Gordon.
Yes.
Tate.
Yes.
Wynn.
Yes.
Temple.
Yes.
Burris.
Yes.
Culpepper.
Yes.
I heard you didn't want that to go.
I'm gonna say, you will get the permit. How long before we start building?
The next item is Old River Manor Phase 1 Bond Review. It's 19.75 acres, current zoning is R3. Applicant is River Road Manor LLC. Location is 3001 Lisa Lane Southeast. The request is to reduce the bond amount to reflect the remaining work to be completed. Proposed land use is single-family residential. One Decatur future land use is mixed neighborhood. And One Decatur street typology, Lisa Lane Southeast, is a local street. The conditions to be met on this, we do have verification from DU, Joe Wheeler, and engineering on the amount needed for completion of the improvements. The total bond reduction, it would be reduced to $43,215. And that was signed off by engineering. And point of information, any relocation of utilities will be at the owner's expense.
Okay. Anyone like to speak to this? Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Borden, second by Ms. Tate. Any questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Gordon.
Yes.
Tate.
Yes.
Wynn.
Yes.
Temple.
Yes.
Burris.
Yes.
Culpepper.
Yes.
Okay, that is approved 7-0.
All right, and the last item is Manor Park Phase 2 Bond Review. It is approximately 5 acres, currently zoned R3. The applicant is Susan Trivet, Manor Park. The location is 2715 Apsley Way Southwest. The request is to release of the bond for public improvements. Proposed land use is single-family residential. One Decatur future land use is rural edge agricultural. One Decatur street typology, Apsley Way Southwest, is a local street. And on conditions to be met, we do have verification from DU, Joe Wheeler, and engineering that all improvements have been completed. And point of information, any relocation of utilities will be at the owner's expense.
Anyone wish to speak to this? Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Motion by Mr. Temple, second by Mr. Wynn. Any comments or questions from the commission? Please call the roll.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Gordon.
Yes.
Tate.
Yes.
Wynn.
Yes.
Temple.
Yes.
Burris.
Yes.
Culpepper.
Yes.
And this request is approved 7-0. There being no further business before.
I got a question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Do we get overtime pay for today?
Well, I'm gonna tell you what, I'm gonna request that clock down because it tells me it's almost my bedtime. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
he said, we're not gonna get overtime pay. If we did, I don't know if it's gonna mount up to that.
Gary, I think hazard pay is more than,
That may be in,
yeah.
line for what we need.